This is a special section on digital strategies and what you need to know to win legislative battles this session. And it's all about digital right now. The face of lobbying today, let's face it, it's no longer the back rooms and the steak dinners. Those are out, and grassroots activism is in. You see that in requests to speak. You see that with throngs of people showing up at the Capitol. 95% of legislative audiences report that personalized messages, including email, have a large impact on their decision making. So what that means is 95% of all legislators are going to listen when they hear from activists. 80% of those say that it takes as little as 30 posts on social media when it's delivered at the right time that could influence their decision making. Lawmakers now expect to hear from real people. They expect to hear from you, not from a lobbyist, not from the C-suite of an organization. So a C-suite would be your CEO, your CFO, your COO, your chief operating officer, your chief financial officer, or your chief executive officer. Instead of hearing from those people, legislators want to hear from the actual people. Today's lawmakers are more responsive than ever. You can get in and get an appointment with them. You can reach them on social media, Twitter, Facebook. You can reach them beyond just having face-to-face meetings. And you can do it in volume. And money has never been more de-emphasized in these local races, because you can actually, you don't have to be that lobbyist or C-level. And the dirty little secret is that legislative offices, they're going to rely on whatever is put in front of them. They're no longer necessarily going to wait around. It's whoever gets to them first. So if you can get something in front of them, that can decide what their focus is, which means in the off years, you can be meeting with your legislators. You don't have to wait for session to start, talking to them about what's important to you and what kind of legislation you'd like to see put forward and what type of legislation you and your organization might support. But activation is the key issue. If you'll notice, fewer than 40% of the people report their willingness to share information. So they're talking fewer than 40% of the population wants to give you their email address or wants to be informed by your group, your cause, your community. But legislators now want to hear from you more. So legislators want to hear more from the people, but the people are really hesitant about giving out their contact information to organizations that can then funnel them back in to talk to their legislators. And so that's a constant issue. So we work with engaging our supporters. You don't have to have the same old predetermined mix of tactics for engagement. Don't go with, we send an email once a week because we always send an email once a week. An email is the only way that we have to get in touch with them. Think outside the box. How are you using Twitter? How are you using Instagram? Where is your audience? For example, one of the things you're going to notice is your elected officials are on Twitter. The voters are not on Twitter, but your elected officials are. So that's the most immediate way to interact with them. And what's the best way to engage press? Press is also on social media, but they're on Twitter as well because, again, it is the most immediate response you can get. So are you using Twitter to get your word out, to have people populate Twitter messages? Are you encouraging people to make Facebook posts and to post on elected officials' pages? If you're just sending an email, you're really missing out. There are so many other ways that you can be engaging your supporters and getting attention. Don't forget that the timing of the engagement can be more important than anything else. You may not have to have 500 people. So if you try building for a very big event, because you want to have this huge march on the Capitol, you might be better off with engaging fewer people, but having them really populate social media and talk to the press and have a different perspective, a different large-scale impact with fewer people. So you can have a large-scale impact on the press, through the press, directly on the legislators themselves, and on your community, and you don't necessarily have to resort to having a big march. You can use fewer people, but more resources. And just one word of caution, groups that put a premium on vanity metrics. How many people did we get to show up? How many people did we have in the hearing room? How many people were wearing our t-shirts? Those are vanity metrics, and inevitably, organizations that just concentrate on those metrics will fail. You need to really focus on what matters, which is prioritizing the relationship building between you and your audience. So you have to ask yourself, what exactly is my value proposition? Why should my audience or my community be listening to me? Why should they read my email? Why should they follow me on social media? Why should they repost what I post? And then the answer to that is going to be either they're going to get access to the elected officials, they're going to get answers to questions that they have, maybe they're going to get exclusive information. What value are these people going to get for engaging with your community or engaging with you? But you need to never get hung up on the production quality. It is far more effective to go ahead and put out a video. It may not be perfect. Let's face it, this video itself is not perfect, but it's not the production quality, it's the quality of the message. And if you get your message out to your community and your community can communicate, that's where you're going to see success. But you need to build your cycle of outreach. When we're talking about issue-oriented advocacy, especially digitally motivated issue advocacy, you don't have to get 51%. It's not about getting 50 plus 1% of the population to agree with you. You just have to be the loudest person in the room. You just have to be the most visible. So don't ignore any opportunity to cultivate your audience, to grow your audience, especially now because there is no off season. We're really campaigning 24/7. And you saw that last spring with the marches for education, and you'll see that again where there is no time that we're technically not trying to build our organizations and our organizations are not advocating. One thing for sure is it has to be authentic. That is essential in everything you do. If it's forced, if it's trite, it's not going to work. So here's what you should be doing right now. You should learn how to spell. You should be doing an ask campaign on Twitter or Facebook, which means you're constantly asking questions, trying to get people to respond to you and to grow your network. If you ask a compelling question, people will forward that post around and you will have more people in your inner circle, in your digital sphere of influence. And remember your ABCs. Always be collecting. You always want to be collecting email addresses. So if you're putting out a survey or a poll, you're sending that out, asking people to forward it to their friends. That way you can capture their email addresses and build your sphere of influence. Every event you're at, every meeting you're at, even if you're at a hearing at the legislature and you have like-minded people around you, ask for their emails. Have them sign up. Get to grow your community organically. But you have to commit to testing your message. And what I mean by that is sometimes your emails may not have an open rate or a click-through rate that you're necessarily happy about. That's when you really have to reevaluate your call to action Are you asking them to do something that is possible? Do you have too many calls to action? Are you asking them to do this and this? Call your legislator. Do this, do this. If you ask them to do more than one action, they're going to do nothing. Remember, a confused mind does nothing. If someone is confused about what to do, they're going to do absolutely nothing. Once you evaluate your call to action, look at your value proposition. What are they getting from the communication that you're providing? What is it that's leaving them better than you found them? And test it. Testing it means send half to one audience and half to another audience and see what the response is. Now, if you're using MailChimp, you can easily see what the response is. I prefer MailChimp just because it's a free program that lets me send email and then evaluate. And MailChimp will do the split testing for you. Then you need to be advocating. All these ways to contact your lawmakers, they empower your audience. This is what's going to also grow your audience and grow your community digitally. These are people that you're not meeting on the street, but if you are putting out ways for them to contact their lawmakers, advice on how to contact or what to say, then your audience feels the need to connect directly with them, and that's a benefit for your cause. The more people who are directly addressing their legislators, the better off your cause is going to be. And the best way to do that is to provide a digital way for them to do it. This engagement creates that brand loyalty where they will always want to be part of your advocate. They will always want to be part of your process. They're always going to be your supporters then, because you introduce them to advocacy and to talking directly to their legislators. And this is how they're far more likely to share contact information and become incredibly loyal supporters and donors in the future. Texting. Peer-to-peer texting is far and away the most effective research or outreach tool we have. It's got over an 80% open rate, whereas nonprofit emails are generally at 18 to 20%. So you automatically have more eyeballs. It provides you a chance to do one-to-one communication, but do it on a mass scale. Whenever you can, you want to be texting and use one of the inexpensive texting programs or just peer-to-peer to communicate. Texting is what gives you that immediacy. It lets you do spur-of-the-moment rallies, spur-of-the-moment, have people show up, coordinate this. It's an incredibly effective tactic. The next thing I want to talk about is just all of this monetization of advocacy. People ask about what the best platforms are, and I talked to you about using Twitter to get the press. It is a small audience, but it does have a big reach because you can reach the press, you can reach your legislators, you can reach your legislators directly through Twitter. You have Google ads, you have Facebook ads. Facebook ads are no longer as profitable because over the last cycle you saw how Facebook locked down on political ads. But they are still a great way to reach people for engagement. If you want people to respond to you, that's engagement. If you want them to like it or to click through something. Now, also consider using YouTube because YouTube is the best way to get eyeballs on things. So, YouTube is great for display. You can get your advertising up and a lot of eyeballs will see it. They can't necessarily engage in your advertisement, but you will have a lot of displays. Grassroots organizing today is like eating your vegetables. The sooner you do it, the healthier you're going to be. And the one thing you need to remember is to get started, build your audience, and then interact with them. And you have these tips, tricks, and tools to do that. You have these tips, tricks, and tools to do that. And reaching out to your community and having your community do direct advocacy to the legislators, to your lawmakers, is one of the best ways to grow your community and to make positive change. Thanks very much for listening. I'll talk to you all soon.